Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are tackling a subject that I think is going to resonate with, well, honestly, probably trigger just about anyone who has tried to run a small business, manage a team, or just, get through a to-do list in the UK over the last couple of years.
It's a topic that sounds so administrative on the surface. People hear admin and they just tune out. But when you actually peel it back, it's not really about admin at all.
No, not at all.
It's about survival. It's about the fundamental mechanics of how work gets done or doesn't get done in 2026.
Exactly. And before we get into the heavy stuff, I want to set the scene. I want you to picture this and tell me if it doesn't just make your blood pressure spike just describing it. It's Monday morning, you're a business owner in, say, Manchester.
Or Birmingham, or just outside London. Anywhere, really.
Anywhere, the rain is probably hitting the window. You walk into your office, or let's be real, you open your laptop at your kitchen table because you gave up the office lease last year. And the dread, it just sets in immediately.
The Monday dread.
Yeah.
It's a recognized phenomenon.
A very real thing. You've got 87 unread emails just sitting there. There are supplier invoices that are 3 weeks overdue, and you have that little red notification bubble just staring at you, judging you.
And you promised yourself you'd schedule that social media campaign on Friday afternoon.
Of course you did. But a client called, a fire needed putting out, and you didn't, so now you're behind schedule before the week has even started.
And the cherry on top, the thing that really breaks the spirit.
The cherry on top is that you had an interview scheduled for a 9:00 a.m. You were genuinely excited about this one. It was a candidate for that admin role you've been trying to fill since, October?
A role that's supposed to solve all these other problems.
Exactly. You prepped the questions, you even made a proper coffee, and guess what?
Silence. Complete radio silence.
Complete silence. They ghosted, they didn't show up to the Zoom, they didn't reply to your polite, "Are we still on?" email. They just vanished into the ether.
And that scenario, that exact scenario, is becoming statistically normal. It's not just a run of bad luck. It is the reality of the market we're in.
It is the back office nightmare. And today we are doing a deep dive into a very specific solution proposed in our source material. We're looking at a company called VAConnect. That's pronounced VAConnect.
VAConnect.
And the premise here is really interesting because it challenges the default setting of, I think, most UK business owners. It asks the question, can looking south, specifically to South Africa, solve this labor shortage and the absolutely crushing cost crisis for UK SMEs?
And I think it's important to set the stage here immediately. When we talk about outsourcing, most people have a very specific and often, let's be honest, a very negative image in their head.
Oh, absolutely.
They think of a massive anonymous call center. They think of a script being read by someone who clearly doesn't understand the product, let alone care about it.
Or they think of a completely different time zone where you have to wake up at 3 a.m. to get anything done, and the communication is just a total nightmare.
Or they think of the race to the bottom on price, where quality just falls off a cliff. You get what you pay for, and what you pay for is $5 an hour and a headache.
A massive headache.
Precisely. But the documents we're analyzing today regarding VAConnect, they're proposing something fundamentally different. They're talking about geographic arbitrage, which is a fancy economic term we'll definitely unpack.
Please.
But also cultural alignment and, crucially, a managed model versus what they call the absolute chaos of the freelance marketplaces.
Right. And before we dive into the nitty-gritty, we have to make our standard disclaimer. We are analyzing the provided source material. These are documents detailing VAConnect's services, their philosophy, their internal data, and their comparisons to the UK market. We are here to unpack the arguments they're making.
We are impartial observers reporting on the data provided.
Exactly. We are endorsing this company, and we certainly aren't telling you to fire your local staff. But we are definitely going to explore the solution they're presenting, because the problem they identify, it is very, very real.
It is. So let's start with that problem. Because to understand why a company in Johannesburg, specifically in Block B, Infinity Business Park, as the source notes might be the answer, you have to understand just how broken the mechanics of UK hiring have become for small businesses.
Let's unpack the true cost analysis, because I think a lot of people, myself included, you look at a salary on job listings, say on Indeed or LinkedIn, and you think, okay, that's the number, that's what it costs.
And that's what the source material calls the salary illusion. It is a cognitive trap that so many business owners fall into.
It's a powerful illusion.
It is.
Yeah.
Let's look at the maths provided in the documents. Let's say you're looking for a mid-level administrative assistant in the UK. You want someone competent, someone who can run a calendar, handle invoices, just be a safe pair of hands.
dream?
The dream. Glassdoor data from early 2026, which the source cites, puts that average salary at around £24,500.
Okay, so if I'm a small business owner, I grab my calculator, I divide that by 12. That's roughly $2,000 a month, a little over. I look at my cash flow and think, yeah, I can stretch to $2,000. It'll be tight, but I can do it.
And that is the moment you make a fatal financial mistake.
Hmm.
Because that figure, that £24,500, it is just the starting line. It's the sticker price on a car before you've paid for the wheels, the engine, the tax, the insurance.
It's the base model with no windows. Walk us through the hidden menu. What are we actually paying?
Okay, first up, you've got the government, employer national insurance. Now, following the changes that came through in 2025, the landscape shifted. The rate is running at 15% on earnings, above the £5,000 threshold.
Wait, 15%? I always forget how substantial that is. It just sounds like a number, but when you actually calculate it...
It's very substantial. On a £24,500 salary, after you account for the threshold, that calculation adds roughly £3,200 to your annual bill. Immediately.
$3,000. Just gone.
Gone. That money never touches the employee's bank account. It goes straight from your business account to HMRC. So your £24,500 is now £27,700. And we're just getting started.
And we haven't even talked about the future yet. Pensions?
Correct. Mandatory pension contributions from the employer. You have to contribute at least 3% of qualifying earnings.
And that's the legal minimum, right?
The absolute bare minimum. So that adds another $735 small minimum. And let's be honest, if you were trying to hire in a competitive market, offering the bare legal minimum pension is not exactly a great selling point. Good candidates will look elsewhere. But let's just assume you're sticking to the basics for now.
Okay, so we're just over £28,400 now. And this person still doesn't have a desk or a computer.
Not yet. This is where the sources highlight the setup costs. Because this person doesn't just manifest in your office with all the tools they need to do their job.
I wish. No, I have to buy them a laptop.
Right. And in 2026, you aren't buying a cheap budget machine if you want them to be productive. A decent business laptop is what, $800 to £1,000? Easily.
At least. Then you need the software stack.
The dreaded software stack. Microsoft 365, that's a subscription. Zoom Pro, another subscription. Maybe a CRM license like HubSpot or Salesforce, Slack, project management tools like Asana or Monday.com.
It's the subscription tax. I feel like I bleed 20-pound notes every month just on software licenses for the team.
It adds up incredibly fast. The source material estimates this entire tech stack and equipment cost at around £2,000 to £3,000 in the first year alone.
Okay, so we're well over $30,000 now, but we're missing the big one, the really painful one.
Oh, yes. Recruitment.
How did you even find this person in the first place?
If you use a recruitment agency, which many small businesses have to because they don't have time to sift through hundreds of CDs themselves, the standard fee in the UK is often 15% to 20% of the first year's salary.
So on £24,500, that is. Almost £4,000. Maybe even $5,000, just for the introduction.
Just for the CV. Just for the handshake. So when you actually calculate the fully loaded cost, and the sources are very insistent on using this term, fully loaded, that £24,500 admin assistant isn't costing you £24,500.
Yeah.
They are costing you, realistically, somewhere between £35,000 and £45,000 annually.
That is a massive jump. You were talking about potentially an 80% increase on the sticker price.
Precisely. And for a small firm, that difference, that extra £15,000 or £20,000, is often the difference between profit and loss for the year. It's the difference between investing in a new marketing campaign or just treading water. It is, as the source says, unsustainable.
And that is all assuming, and this is a huge, huge assumption, that you can even find the person. The sources bring up this concept of the ghosting culture. I feel like this is something every hiring manager complains about now. It's like the worst habits of dating apps have infected the job market.
It's a symptom of a fundamentally broken market. The sources trace this labor shortage directly back to the long-term effects of Brexit restrictions on EU workers, combined with a very tight domestic market for certain roles. The pool of available willing talent for administrative work at that $24K price point has simply shrunk.
So candidates have all the back.
They hold all the cards. They might accept an interview with you, but if a better offer comes in 10 minutes later, or if they just decide they don't fancy the commute, or if they just don't feel like it, they vanish. No email, no call. Just gone.
And the turnover problem is just as bad, right? Because let's say you win the lottery, you find someone, they accept, they actually show up. You pay the massive recruitment fee. You buy the expensive laptop. You spend 2 solid months training them on your systems, on how you like your emails formatted, and then what?
Then they leave. The average tenure for these entry to mid-level roles is dropping like a stone. They leave for a marginally higher salary, maybe an extra £1,000 a year from the company down the road, or simply because of cost of living pressures. They can't afford the rent on that salary, so they have to move on.
So you're just stuck in this loop.
A perpetual loop. The source material describes the traditional UK hiring model for these admin roles as broken beyond repair for small businesses.
Broken beyond repair, that is a very strong statement.
It is, but look at the cycle it creates. It creates a situation where the business owner never actually gets out of the weeds. You are constantly recruiting, onboarding, training, and then offboarding. You are doing the high-value work of growing your business. You are doing crisis HR management.
So that is the bleak reality. Monday morning, high costs, no staff, and a hole in your budget where the recruitment fee used to be. Now, let's pivot. Let's look at the alternative being proposed. Enter VAConnect.
VAConnect.
So who are they? This isn't some brand new AI startup that just popped up last week with a fancy website.
No, and that's a really reassuring detail in the source material. They have history. They were founded way back in 2008, originally under the name LimeTree Consulting.
Okay, so they've been around the block.
They rebranded to VAConnect in 2014. So they've been doing this in one form or another for nearly 2 decades. They've seen the market evolve.
And their location, you said Johannesburg?
Based in Johannesburg, South Africa. Specifically, Block B Infinity Business Park. They position themselves as Africa's largest managed virtual assistant agency.
Okay, so the key word there, and I want to circle this in red ink, is managed. Because I know what the listener's thinking. I know what I would be thinking. Why can't I just go on Upwork or Fiverr? I can find a VA in the Philippines or India for $5 an hour. Why do I need a whole agency?
That is the million-dollar question, or perhaps the 45,000-pound question, to be more accurate. The source material spends a lot of time, and I think rightly so, distinguishing between a managed agency and a freelance marketplace.
They call the Upwork route the freelance trap.
The freelance trap. And it's a trap because it looks so appealing from the outside.
It's seductive. It's easy, it's cheap. What is the catch? What's the trap?
The trap is that on a platform like Upwork or Fiverr, you become the HR manager. You become the recruitment department. You have to write the perfect job description. You have to post it. Then you have to sift through, 100, 200 profiles?
And let's be honest, half of those profiles are copy-pasted or AI generated. You have
Yeah.
no idea who is real.
Exactly. Then you have to set up interviews. You have to vet their skills. How do you actually know if they are a genuine expert in Excel? Or if their English is actually fluent and not just something they put on a profile page?
You don't. You take a guess. You roll the dice.
You roll the dice. And here's the kicker. Security and churn. A freelancer on a marketplace is, by definition, usually juggling multiple clients. They are hustlers. They have to be to make a living. So they're working for you, but they're also working for 3 or 4 other people at the same time.
So I'm not their priority. I'm just one of their gigs.
You are a gig. And if a gig comes along that pays them $2 an hour more, or if one of their bigger clients has an emergency, or if they just get overwhelmed, they might just drop you. As the text puts it, they disappear for better gigs.
You've been ghosted again, but this time by someone you're paying.
Precisely. It's the dreaded mini-HR headache. You thought you were outsourcing tasks to save time, but you end up spending more time managing the person you hired, chasing them, checking their work, than if you'd just done the work yourself in the first place.
Which defeats the entire purpose.
The VAConnect model, as described, is fundamentally different because of the employment structure. They employ the staff directly. The VAs are not freelancers. They are full-time salaried employees of VAConnect.
So VAConnect is handling the payroll, the benefits, the taxes, all that messy HR stuff.
All of it. They handle the vetting, and the source describes this as rigorous. It's not just a quick chat. They do skills assessments, technical tests, background checks, and cultural fit interviews. And crucially, you get an account manager.
Explain that role. What does an account manager do for me?
You have a single point of contact at the agency to oversee the relationship. If your dedicated VA gets sick, you don't just stare at an empty inbox for a day. You call or message the account manager and they arrange cover.
And performance issues.
That's the big one. If the work isn't quite hitting the mark, you don't have to have that incredibly awkward "you're fired" conversation with someone on Zoom.
Right.
You tell the agency this isn't working and they sort it out. They'll either coach the VA or, if needed, they'll replace them seamlessly.
That sounds a lot more stable. It removes all the emotional labor of management. But let's talk about the geography. Why South Africa? Why not India? Why not the Philippines, which are also huge outsourcing hubs? The source material makes a really strong case for South Africa being the Goldilocks zone for UK businesses.
It really does. It's the Goldilocks zone. Not too expensive, not too far away in time, just right. And it comes down to three main pillars they describe: time zone, culture, and economics.
Let's start with time zone, because I've worked with teams in California and I've worked with teams in Manila, and the time difference is an absolute killer. You are either up until midnight or you're waking up at 5 a.m. for a stand-up. It's exhausting.
It is. And that is where South Africa has a massive, almost unbeatable strategic advantage for the UK market. South Africa's on GMT plus 2.
So they're basically on the same clock as us, an hour or two ahead.
Almost exactly. For most of the year, they're just 1 hour ahead of the UK. When you are having your morning coffee at 9 a.m., they are at their desks at 10 a.m. You are working in parallel for the entire business day.
So no more 3 a.m. calls.
No more 3 a.m. calls. The source calls this time zone magic. It allows for genuine, real-time collaboration. You aren't sending an email into the void and waiting 24 hours for a reply. You can hop on a Zoom call, you can have a quick chat on Slack, and you are both awake, alert, and in the flow of the workday.
But there is also an interesting workflow aspect mentioned in the text, right? This idea of overnight productivity. It's not just about real time.
Yes. This is a very clever way of framing it. Say a UK founder has a really busy day. They're in back-to-back meetings. They finish their last call at 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. UK time. They just dump a bunch of tasks into Slack or email. I need this report collated. I need these flights booked for next week. I need some research done on these competitors.
Normally that just sits there. It's the first thing on your to-do list for tomorrow, which means you're already behind.
In the UK model, yes. But for the VA in South Africa, it might be 6 p.m. their time. They can see the tasks, prep them. Or if they are working slightly flexible hours, they can pick it up first thing in their morning, which is before the UK business day even begins.
So when I log on at 9 a.m.
By the time the UK founder logs on the next day, the work is already done. It's sitting in the inbox, waiting. It gives you this feeling of having extended operating hours without the pain of managing a graveyard shift.
Okay, so the clock works. What about the culture? The text mentioned something specific that made me smile cricket.
Yes, the shared love of cricket. But that's obviously just shorthand for a much broader cultural affinity. The sources highlight the Commonwealth heritage. South Africa and the UK share a lot of history, similar legal frameworks, and educational structures.
So there's a shared frame of reference.
The huge shared frame of reference.
Okay.
The humor translates. The business etiquette is very similar. You're not going to accidentally cause offense because of some major cultural misunderstanding.
And language. This is often the biggest friction point with outsourcing.
This is a major selling point in the documents. They describe the South African accent as being widely perceived as neutral and professional, with a very high general proficiency in English across the educated population.
So for voice work calling suppliers, chasing invoices, talking to my customers, that's a huge asset.
The significant asset.
Yeah.
It removes that potential barrier that sometimes exists with other outsourcing hubs, where heavy accents can, unfortunately, create friction or misunderstanding. The source calls it linguistic neutrality.
And let's look at education levels. Are we talking about hiring people fresh out of school with no real experience?
Generally, no. Quite the opposite. The sources note that South Africa produces high rates of tertiary qualifications. Many of the VAs at VAConnect hold university degrees.
A degree for an admin role.
Yes, and the text makes a very pointed comparison here. In the UK, if you are hiring for a £24,000 admin role, you are likely getting someone who didn't go to university or someone very junior in their career. In South Africa, because of the wage arbitrage, that same budget gets you a degree-educated professional with several years of experience.
So you are effectively hiring overqualified staff relative to the role, simply because of the geography.
Exactly. You're getting a graduate to run your diary and manage your inbox. That's a huge uplift in capability.
Okay, so they are qualified, they speak the language, and they are awake when we are. Now let's talk about the bottom line, the economics of this. We established that the UK hire is $35K to $45K fully loaded. What's the damage here?
This is the arbitrage part of geographic arbitrage. The cost savings are described as being between 40% and 60% below the fully loaded UK equivalents.
40 to 60%. That's a big number. Walk us through the maths provided.
The source lists hourly rates for their services, which are quoted in US dollars. They range from around $17 to $60, depending on the complexity of the role and the package.
So in British pounds, what are we looking at?
Converting that at current rates, you're looking at roughly £13 to £47 an hour. but it's easier to look at the monthly packages.
Okay. So let's take a standard scenario. A small business needs 20 hours of support a week. That's a half-time role, a very common need.
Right. For a 20-hour-a-week dedicated assistant, you're looking at one of their standard packages, which costs, in the source documents, £728 a month.
So in pounds, that's what? Around 1,300, 1,400 pounds a month.
Something in that ballpark, yes. Let's call it around £1,400 a month for a skilled, managed, degree-educated assistant.
So annually, that's under 17,000 pounds.
Yes. Annually, you are maxing out under £17,000. Now, compare that to the £40,000 plus fully loaded cost of a UK hire for a full-time role, or even £20,000 plus for a part-time one with all the on-costs.
And the key insight there, which I think we need to scream from the rooftops, is what is not included in that VAConnect bill.
Exactly. That is the final price. There's no employer national insurance to add on top, no mandatory pension contributions, no recruitment fees that can run into the thousands, no office overheads, no laptop to buy, no software licenses for their core tools. The price on the tin is the price you pay.
It turns a fixed, heavy, and unpredictable overhead into a flexible, manageable, and predictable operational cost.
That's the financial argument in a nutshell.
It's a very compelling argument for anyone looking at a balance sheet, but I want to peel back the curtain a bit more. I want to look at the internal ecosystem of VAConnect, because there is a statistic in here that really jumped out at me, and if you know this industry, it's frankly shocking. They claim a 98% staff retention rate over a 14-month period.
In the world of BPO business process outsourcing, that is an almost unbelievably high number. High turnover or churn is usually the plague of this industry.
Right. Call centers are famous for burning through staff in 6 months. It's a revolving door.
So to have 98% of your staff still with you after more than a year is remarkable. It suggests they're doing something very different.
So how are they achieving it? Are they just paying way above the local market rate? Or is there something else going on?
The pay is competitive, but the source material details a few internal programs that sound, well, surprisingly holistic. It seems they're using the money they save on not having to pay UK-level overheads to invest directly back into their staff.
It's the managed difference again, isn't it? They aren't just placing bodies in seats. They're building a career path. The first pillar of this is something they call VA varsity.
VA varsity. That is pronounced VA varsity.
Right. What is it? It sounds quite grand.
It's described as an internal Udemy-style online education portal.
So like an online university exclusively for their own staff?
Exactly. It functions as a continuous upskilling platform. They have courses on all the key software a UK business would use. Xero for accounting, HubSpot for CRM, the full Microsoft 365 suite. But they also teach soft skills, advanced time management, professional communication, client relationship management.
The benefit to the client here seems obvious.
It's massive. In the UK, if you want your admin assistant to learn how to use Xero, you have to pay for the course, and you have to pay for the day of their time they take off to do it.
And you cross your fingers they don't leave 3 months later and take that new skill with them.
Right. The classic fear. What if I train them and they leave? Here, the VA arrives skilled, and crucially, they keep learning while they work for you. On VAConnect's time and VAConnect's dime, you are getting an asset that appreciates in value rather than stagnating or depreciating.
To which the counterquote is always, what if you don't train them and they stay? VAConnect seems to have solved both sides of that equation. They train them and they stay.
That seems to be the model.
But then there's the wellness aspect. This is the program they call Atomic Energy. And honestly, when I first read this section, I thought I was reading a brochure for a luxury spa or a high-performance athletic center, not an admin agency.
It is surprising, isn't it? It feels very Silicon Valley for what is essentially a remote support firm.
Tell us about Atomic Energy. What does it actually involve?
The source highlights this as a particularly unique feature. It involves personalized diet and exercise programs for the VAs.
Diet and exercise for their virtual assistants.
Yes. They have physical and mental mobility coaches on staff. They focus on the holistic physical and mental health of the remote worker.
Why? I mean, it sounds nice, but what's the business case for that? Is this just a nice-to-have perk?
The business case they present is actually very sharp. Think about the job. You're sitting at a desk, staring at a screen, typing, managing complex data streams for 8 hours a day. It is incredibly sedentary. It leads to back pain, eye strain, mental fatigue, and lethargy.
The dreaded afternoon slump. We've all been there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
VAConnect argues that by proactively investing in the physical and mental health of their staff, they produce energized, focused, and deeply loyal employees. It is an anti-burnout program baked into the company culture.
And burnout is the #1 reason people quit these high-pressure admin and support jobs. So if
Hmm.
you are proactively managing that, literally hiring a personal trainer for them, you keep your best people.
And you get better work out of them.
Yeah.
A healthy, energized VA works faster, communicates more clearly, and makes fewer mistakes than a tired, burnt-out one. It's a direct investment in the quality of the service delivered to the client.
And then there is a third program mentioned called VPI,
VPI.
the happiness program.
Ah, yes. VAPI. It's a clever play on API application programming interface, but for people. It is what they call their two-way happiness concept.
Okay, that sounds a bit fluffy. What does two-way happiness actually mean in practice?
It is designed to proactively manage the relationship between the client and the VA to ensure both sides are satisfied. It's not just about the VA keeping the client happy. The agency also works to ensure the client is being a good partner to the VA.
How does that work?
It encourages engagement and accountability. It prevents the relationship from becoming purely transactional, just a list of tasks. They encourage clients to treat the remote worker as a human being, a genuine part of the team, not just a robot on the other end of an email. They help facilitate that integration.
I love that. It's about humanizing the digital workforce, which can so easily become dehumanized. Now let's talk about what these people actually do, because I think there is a misconception that a virtual assistant is just someone who answers emails and books flights.
The source material is very clear that this goes beyond just admin. They list a whole menu of roles that is quite extensive and specialized.
Right. They break it down into categories. You have your classic executive assistants or EAs.
These are the core roles, yes.
Yeah.
The high-level diary management, the inbox taming, the complex travel booking, the gatekeeping. This is the person who organizes your professional life so you can focus on your actual job.
But then you have marketing assistants.
Yes. People who can handle your social media scheduling, basic content creation, managing your email lists, even basic graphic design using tools like Canva.
And sales assistants or SDRs, sales development reps.
This is a really interesting one. Lead generation, CRM management, and cleanup. This is a direct revenue-generating role. If you have an expensive salesperson spending half their day chasing dead leads or cleaning up data in the CRM, you are losing a fortune. A VA can clean those leads and prep the data so the salesperson only talks to qualified prospects.
It's a massive force multiplier for a sales team.
And they even list software engineers and project managers.
That was the most surprising part to me. You can hire high-level technical skills through the same managed model. It suggests that VAConnect is moving well beyond secretarial work into broader, more technical staff augmentation.
It seems so. And there is a claim in the documents here about a productivity gap. The sources claim that their managed VAs can deliver 20% to 30% higher output than an equivalent office-based employee. How do they justify that?
That's a bold claim.
It's very bold. They give two main reasons. First, specialization. A VAConnect assistant often focuses exclusively on their core domain for a client. They aren't getting pulled into random office politics. They aren't being asked to cover the reception desk while the receptionist is at lunch.
They're not organizing the office birthday party unless that's their specific job.
Exactly. It's pure focused work. And second, the distraction-free home environment. The argument, which has been borne out by a lot of post-pandemic research, is that a focused remote worker in a controlled, quiet environment simply gets more done per hour than someone in a chaotic open-plan office where people are constantly tapping them on the shoulder with just a quick question.
I can absolutely believe that. I get more done in 2 focused hours at home than I do in 8 hours at the office sometimes.
Now let's look at the menu, the packages, because they structure this in a way that is quite interesting. It is not just pay per hour.
No, they have very clear tiers. It starts with what they call the dedicated virtual assistant packages.
Okay.
You have the starter package, which is 10 hours a week. The source quotes this at $1,038 a month.
That's good for someone just dipping their toe in, testing the waters.
Then you have the half day at 20 hours a week, which we mentioned earlier, for $1,728. And the full day at 40 hours a week for $2,850 a month.
And those are for dedicated individuals. You get the same person every day. They become part of your team.
Yes. But then there is another level, the growth accelerator packages. And this is where the host in me gets a bit surprised because they introduce these epic-sounding names, the Forge, the Summit, and the Apex.
It sounds like a superhero team. Don't worry, I'm sending in the Forge to handle your inbox. It sort of is a superhero team, in a business sense. These are team access packages. For example, the Forge is listed at $4,380 a month. You get 40 hours of work, but here's a clever part. You get a dedicated executive VA plus access to a team of specialists.
Wait, unpack that for me. So I hire one person, but I get access to a whole team.
Exactly. You hire the EVA as your main point person, your quarterback. But if you need a quick graphic design task done, the EVA doesn't try to stumble through it in Canva. They pass it to a specialist graphic designer on the wider VAConnect team.
Wow.
If you need a bit of high-level copywriting for a landing page, they pull in a writer. If you need some complex data entry or spreadsheet work, they pull in a data specialist.
That is incredibly clever because one person can rarely be an expert in high-level admin and high-level graphic design and high-level sales support.
It solves the classic jack-of-all-trades, master-of-none problem that you often get with a single hire. You get the consistency and relationship of one main contact, but you have the skill set of an entire department on call.
And what about the Apex? That sounds like the top tier.
The Apex package goes up to 100 hours of team support a month for $8,800. That is essentially hiring a small, multi-skilled department over 2 full-time equivalents for less than the price of one mid-level manager in London.
So let's go back to our Monday morning nightmare from the intro. The Manchester business owner drowning in emails. Let's paint the after picture based on what we've just read.
Okay, let's visualize it. The after scenario is Monday morning, 9:00 a.m. You open Slack or your email. Your VAConnect executive assistant, let's say she's based in Cape Town, has been online since 7:00 a.m. your time.
And what do I see?
You don't see 87 unread emails. You see 5, because the VA has already triaged your inbox. She's filed the newsletters, deleted the spam, replied to the simple scheduling inquiries, and has flagged the 5 emails that actually need your brain and your authority to answer.
That alone is worth the money, just the inbox peace of mind.
Then you see that your CRM is updated. The inquiries that came in over the weekend have been processed and assigned. There is a prioritized task list waiting for you in Asana for the day. Your expenses from last week's trip have been submitted and approved. The social media posts for the week are scheduled and ready to go.
And the ghosting candidate from the 9 a.m. interview?
Doesn't matter. It's a non-event. Because you have a reliable, professional partner who has already done half a day's work before you finish your first coffee. The founder is now free to spend their morning on sales calls, on strategy, on actually growing the business, while all the operational noise is being handled efficiently and remotely.
It sounds idyllic. It sounds like the dream every small business owner has, but, and you knew there was a but coming, I have to play devil's advocate here. The skeptic listener is screaming one word at their speaker right now. Security?
It's a valid and crucial point. What about my data? Is the #1 question for any kind of outsourcing. I meant to give someone in another continent my passwords.
Exactly. I am handing over access to my email, my calendar, maybe my customer database, my financial software. That is terrifying. What if they steal my customer list? What if they send a fraudulent email to my clients telling them to pay into a different bank account?
The expert view on this is that you have to look at the compliance framework and the accountability structure.
Yeah.
VAConnect addresses this explicitly in the documents. They state they are GDPR compliant.
Which is an absolute non-negotiable for any UK or EU-facing firm.
Absolutely. They have clear policies on data protection, NDAs, and secure password management. But more importantly, let's go back to the managed versus freelance argument. Because it is a managed agency, the accountability flows through the company, not the individual.
Explain what that means in practice.
If a random freelancer on Upwork steals your data and disappears, you have very little recourse. They are a ghost on the internet. You can complain to the platform, but the damage is done and they're long gone. If a VAConnect employee were to do that, you have a legal contract with a registered company that has a brand, a reputation to protect, physical assets, and a physical location in Johannesburg.
They have skin in the game, a lot of skin in the game.
They have everything to lose. So their vetting has to be incredibly strict, and their security protocols have to be robust because their entire business model is built on trust. One major breach could destroy them.
And there is another risk they mitigate. The source documents call it the bus factor.
The rather morbid side of business continuity planning.
Yeah.
What if my key employee gets hit by a bus? Or, less dramatically, gets a bad case of the flu, goes on maternity leave, or just quits with 2 weeks' notice?
In a small business, if your one and only admin person quits, you are back to square one immediately. You are the admin again overnight.
VAConnect, according to the source, offers a continuity guarantee. If your dedicated VA leaves the company or gets sick, the agency guarantees a replacement. They have other trained staff who can step in, often with documentation and processes already in place.
So you're not left high and dry.
This is the minimized risk promise. You are buying a service-level agreement, not just a person's time. The service ensures the work continues, even if the individual performing it changes.
That is a crucial distinction. It turns a chaotic human variable into a fixed, reliable constant. Now, before we wrap up the analysis, I want to touch on the human element behind the company, the founder story.
Yes, the source mentions the founder, Karen.
Just Karen, like Madonna or Cher.
The source refers to her primarily just as Karen. She founded the original company, Lime Tree Consulting, way back in 2008.
And then pivoted to the VAConnect managed model in 2014.
That's right. She is described in the text as having the personality traits of a captain.
A captain. I like that. It's very evocative.
It implies leadership, navigation, steering the ship through rough waters, which I imagine the outsourcing world has seen plenty of. She's described as having a rock-solid work ethic. And her passion is described as being for systems, processes, and sales and marketing.
Which are exactly the things most creative, product-focused entrepreneurs hate doing but desperately need.
Exactly. But her vision, as laid out in the text, is interesting. It was about making virtual assistants a genuine, respected career path for South Africans, not just a stopgap gig between other jobs.
Which aligns with the VA varsity and the atomic energy programs we talked about.
It all ties together. It's about professionalizing the industry from the inside out. She wants VAs to be proud of being VAs and to see a long-term future in it.
So we have covered the problem, the UK hiring crisis. We've covered the proposed solution-managed South African VAs, the geography, the internal workings, the packages. Now let's bring it all together. The source material provides a very handy, clear choice table. Let's summarize the final argument for the listener.
It's a simple three-way comparison. Option 1, the traditional UK hire. The pros are, well, they are in the room with you. You can see them. The cons, as we've discussed, are the high cost 35K to 45K fully loaded, the high risk of turnover, the slow onboarding, and the rigid employment contracts.
Option 2. The freelance marketplace, your Upworks, your Fivers. The pros are the low cost, which is variable and you can get started very fast. The cons are the extremely high risk, the high management overhead, that mini HR problem, the inconsistent quality, and the security concerns.
And then option 3, the VAConnect managed service, as presented.
Low cost relative to the UK hire, so somewhere in that 13K to 22.5K range. Low risk because it's managed, insured, and guaranteed. And high quality because the staff are vetted, trained, and often degree educated. The argument is that it sits in that perfect sweet spot, cheaper than a local hire, but safer and higher quality than a random freelancer.
It's about reclaiming time, isn't it?
Yeah.
The phrase transformative savings is used in the text, and I think that applies just as much to your mental energy and your time as it does to your bank balance.
And if we connect this to the bigger economic picture, it's the realization that geography isn't destiny anymore. For a long, long time, huge corporations, the banks, the insurers, the telcos, have used BPO and large-scale outsourcing to save millions. They have whole towers in Johannesburg or Cape Town full of staff.
But the little guy,
Yeah.
small business owner in Manchester, couldn't access that. It was out of reach.
Exactly. What a service like VAConnect represents, according to this material, is that powerful concept of talent arbitrage finally becoming available and accessible to the small business owner. You don't need to be Vodafone or Barclays to have a professional support team in South Africa anymore.
You just need to be a founder with too many emails.
And a willingness to think differently about where your team is located.
So what does this all mean for our learner? For the person listening to this who is currently staring at that pile of unpaid invoices and that overflowing inbox?
I think it means the bottleneck might not be the market anymore. The market has solutions. The solution might just be 6,000 miles south in the same time zone.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought for the day.
Indeed. The question we want to leave you mulling over is this. If the barrier to entry for high-quality, degree-educated, managed professional support has dropped by 50% or more, thanks to models like this, what is the excuse for still being overwhelmed by admin in 2026?
Ouch. That stings a little.
Because perhaps the real bottleneck isn't the shortage of labor in the UK, it's the mindset of the business owner who hasn't yet looked south.
That is a tough question to answer if you are still drowning in that paperwork. And on that note, that's all for this deep dive into VAConnect and the South African solution. We'll catch you in the next one.